Hi, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ayman Shafiq and my metric number is 1723039. So today I'll share my findings on the Islamic perspective and the conventional perspective when it comes to socialism. But first we must redefine the word socialism. The socialism here is an economic theory where the means of production, the distribution, the exchange, they should be owned and regulated by the community as a whole. Now there is a fair differences when it comes to communism and socialism. So communism believes in a centrally planned system where most of the distribution, the means of production is all allocated by the government and planned by the government. And on the other hand, socialism is very similar, but it's a soft version of it. The word socialism has evolved throughout the years, and we can see that the idea itself is very popular in the United States, championed by Bernie Sanders and other left-wing Congress and Senate. But the threshold of socialism is we're going to set it for the Fabio socialism. But first, we must distinguish the difference between Islamic economy and socialism. Although they share a lot of same value, but we can see the differences is that when it comes to Islamic economy, every resources is owned by Allah. So it's not a matter of private or government ownership of resources. Rather, Allah has given them equally to all men as a common trust, and every human being is the beneficiary and is equally entitled to use them. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through all the Islamic scholars, their critiques on this matter, as well as we're gonna compare it with the conventional economic when it comes to the critiques on this matter. So the first scholar is Salam Musa from 1887 until 1958, where he published an article called Ishtirakiyah, or in English it's literally called Socialism. And a little about his background is he was sick of the capitalism that is going on in the West as well as in his country, which was colonized by the British. But the thing about Salam Musa is that he was fascinated by Karl Marx, and his idea was mostly inspired by Fabio, who was a revolutionist with Lenin in the USSR, and also he helped to establish socialism in Cuba. He even championed for free education, social services housing, limited working hours, retirement pension, and even compensation for accident or death throughout a program called nationalization with compensation. He also believes in progressive taxes, inheritance taxes, and supervision of certain segments by the government. But what is the most interesting aspect from Salam Musa was that he recommended that in order for a country to implement this system, it has to be gradual and slow, so as to not result in any economic shock. This is important because when it comes to Lenin, who was a revolutionist in the former Soviet Union, he overthrew a monarch, and then the system was just like on the spot right after he killed the Tsar family. So although he was inspired by the two figures, he believes in to be specific, it was a parliamentary system of government. So there's a gist of Islamic value in his ideas, but at the same time, it still is a very, very far left idea. Next, we have Hassan al-Banna from 1906 until 1949, who was a member of Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. Perhaps he was the most important figure when it comes to this progressive idea, the evolution of socialism. So unlike Musa, his idea derived from the Quran and Sunnah itself, and he believes that the economic system as a whole is perfect enough that it could topple down capitalistic, even communism. Although there is some socialistic behavior in his idea, but he mostly emphasized on Islamic value and Islamic principles and law. So he wants to incorporate the Islamic value in political, education, as well as economic reform. And economic reform here specifically, during that time, he was emphasizing on the banking system, which was driven by riba, as well as the proper distribution of zakat. So the main issue that he tackled on was on colonialism, public health, educational policy, as well as the natural resource management. So his idea was very similar to a democratic socialism, but he emphasized more on the Islamic value. Then we have Mustafa al-Sibai from 1915 until 1964, where his idea was mostly on a man's freedom. He championed the idea of man's freedom, which is very contradict to the communism and socialism by Fabio. So he believes that humans have 5 natural rights. Number 1 is life, number 2 is freedom, number 3 is knowledge, number 4 is dignity, and number 5 is ownership. However, he viewed that the state plays an important role when it comes to the nationalization of essential public services and also the implementation of Islamic laws. So he believes in a democratic cooperative socialism, which is very, very different when it comes to the purest communism by Karl Marx itself. So now we're going to discuss on the conventional thoughts. Firstly, there are a lot of conventional scholars who critique on the socialism as well as communism as a whole. To name a few, Friedrich Hayek, Nicholas Pearson. But for today, we're going to focus on Ludwig von Mises in 1920, where he published the economic calculation in the Socialist Commonwealth. But before we get into it, it's fair to say that both conventional and Islamic thoughts disagree with the idea of centrally planned system. But even the fundamental value of conventional and Islamic is there's a very huge difference in it. So the first one is Mises. He emphasized that the laissez-faire system will allow the market to use the least valuable resources and claim that it is the most economically efficient. And we're going to compare with Salama Musa here because he championed the idea of free education, social service, housing, and all those. So in a way, what Mises argued was partially true, but putting too much trust on the market, we simply could not rectify the idea that it is economically efficient because the market can find a loophole to extract the valuable resources and basically just misuse it. We can see a lot of cases in monopoly, even oligopoly, and many more. Also, according to Mises, sectors like education, healthcare, all the essential services should be privatized because capitalism allows private owners of the means of production to experiment with alternative and to discover which one is the best one. So again, a total freedom in the market, especially in essential services, it can lead to inequity and inequality because there are some of the people who could not afford or who are misplaced from the equation. As you set these standards of, for example, healthcare, surely there are some people who will be left out from it, and basically it means that he cannot afford such standard. So that is why all the 3 Muslim scholars believes that essential sectors should be the role of the state. So another argument by Mises is that money, wages, and interest rate are essential in making the existence of money, prices of land, raw materials, and semi-manufacturers. So we can compare with Hassan al-Banna's idea where Islamic is the best alternative solutions rather than just integrating with socialist and communist. So according to Hassan al-Banna is that the banking reformation should not include riba at all because we know that as the interest lending by the bank is just an unjust treatment towards the Egyptian society, and it has created this culture of selfishness, money worshipper, cruelty, hard-heartedness, and even kills the spirit of cooperation. So in conclusion, the current democratic socialism is very, very similar to the Islamic economic theory, except that nowadays interest plays a big role in every country and every economy. So perhaps we should rethink how we can move forward with the Islamic economic theory because the Islamic economic theory is the middle ground between capitalism and socialism, and it's the perfect equilibrium in my opinion. So thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.